Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video, I've finally gotten around to making another meals under £1. They are all really limited amount of ingredients that you need. I'm pretty sure most of you who follow a vegetarian diet will have a lot of these ingredients already in your home, and I'll be telling you how much each ingredient is, for how much you need and how much the overall price per portion is. Let's get straight into the video. Here is recipe number 1. We're going to start with the breakfast. Pretty much everyone, I think, knows how to make pancakes. It's not a completely shocking recipe, but I thought most people when they make pancakes tend to use plain flour. I may be wrong here, but at least where I am, plain flour is the normal. But I'm going to be using self-raising flour. If you're one of these people that just bought a big self-raising flour to make one cake and you don't know what to do with the rest, make pancakes. The reason why I'm showing you this recipe, yes, it's a really simple recipe that most people might already know, but what they don't know is you can batch make this recipe, freeze the individual pancakes, and then have it as an easy breakfast that you can just plonk in the toaster when you're in a rush. When you have a bit of time, maybe on a weekend, you can batch make this recipe. So the recipe I'm going to show you is enough for my family of 4. We have me and my husband and our 2 children who are 7 and 4. They do eat a lot more than us though. If you have a non-stick pan, you're best to use that. I don't, I only have stainless steel, and then this is it a cast iron pan? It's a Le Creuset, I probably butchered the pronunciation of that. It's like a Le Creuset pan, so I'm going to be using that. And while you're prepping the mixture, you want to preheat your pan so that it's warm and ready. And here are the ingredients that you're going to need. I've got some self-raising flour. I'll put on the screen how much we need and how much it costs. So we're going to need about 300 grams for one batch. Some milk, you can use cow milk if you want, we don't, we use soy milk. So we've got some unsweetened soy milk because it's cheaper, and it's going to be 300 mils of that. We're going to be using 2 eggs. We obviously have our own chickens, hence why the numbers are on there. If you want them to be sweet pancakes, we're going to add a tablespoon of caster sugar. The normal recipe calls for baking powder, but I found it's just an extra ingredient that I don't believe that we need. If you would like to add it, it is just a teaspoon of baking powder. But it is such a simple recipe, and then of course the joys of pancakes is you can top it with whatever you want. So we tend to be real basic and just add maple syrup. But if you wanted to make it healthier and have more fruits, then of course you can do that too. So we are going to add 300 grams of self-raising flour. Well, too much. Tablespoon, I normally measure it, but I can't be bothered, so a tablespoon of sugar. We are going to have sweet pancakes, and we're going to loosely mix all of the dry ingredients together. Measuring jug, we're going to add 300 mils of unsweetened soy milk, and then we're going to add 2 eggs. Once you add in 2 eggs, whisk it together until well combined, and then we're going to add it to the dry ingredients. And as always, I overestimated the amount that I could fit in this bowl, so I had to switch over to a bigger bowl, and I just whisked it all together until I had this amazingly silky smooth pancake mixture. Right, that's all ready. I'm going to be using a really big serving spoon. This is the size difference, a normal tablespoon, serving spoon, to dish up each individual pancake. The pan has heated through enough. We're going to add some coconut oil. You can add any oil. I've just got coconut oil that I need to use, so that's what I'm going to use. Make sure your pan is fully heated through before adding your oil. You want a really hot pan to add the oil to, and then straight away add the pancakes. I use a serving spoon to portion out each pancake, and then use the back of the spoon to spread it out a little bit. And then once you are getting lots of little bubbles on top of the pancake, you flip it. As you can see, the more pancakes I cook, the more little burnt bits I get at the bottom of my pan. Probably should invest at some point and get a non-stick that works. These are the completed pancakes. I did make a lot more than what you're seeing on the plate, but the boys were very sneaky and took quite a few while I was filming and making these. We're gonna move on to my lunch recipe. Again, you can use this for a dinner, it doesn't have to just be lunch, but let's get into the lunch recipe. But I feel like most people tend to buy their egg mayo. We're gonna make it. So we've got our eggs. We're gonna use 4 eggs. You can have cress, but I'm just gonna have normal lettuce leaves, any lettuce that you want, it's fine. You don't even need lettuce, but we're gonna have eggs, lettuce, mayo, salt and pepper. Then you can decide if you want it as a sandwich or if you want it on jacket potatoes. And I'll put a price for how much the overall dinner per portion is if you have them as sandwiches, and then the overall price per portion if you have it on jacket potatoes. But that is all we need for this ridiculously simple recipe. We're going to start by filling up a pan with cold water and getting that on the stove. We're going to put our eggs in. I'm putting 4 eggs into the water to boil. Once it starts to boil, then turn the temperature off, but leave the eggs in there for 10 minutes. When the 10-minute timer goes off, that's when you know you are ready to drain your eggs. Pour all of the hot water out of the pan and fill it with cold water. Leave it to run a bit so that the water doesn't go hot straight away. And then once you've left it run for a minute or so, you can leave the eggs in the cold water for a few minutes until they cool down completely. After a few minutes, your eggs are ready to drain. So drain off all the water and then have a bowl ready and you can start to peel your eggs. My eggs are really difficult to peel because they are freshly laid a few days ago from our chickens. Older eggs from the supermarket will be much easier to peel than my ones. Once you've peeled all your eggs, we're gonna slice them up. As you can see, I started to try new scissors and then quickly decided that was not working, so switched to a knife. I diced them all up to small pieces and then we added in our mayo. I used about half a cup of mayo, just slightly over half a cup, but you can add as much or as little as you want, depending on how saucy you like your egg mayo. And then we added a good serving of salt and pepper, a good pinch of salt and pepper. And then that is your egg mayo ready. If you're having it either as a sandwich or as a jacket potato, you can get them ready. I put a little bit of butter on my bread, topped it with the egg mayo and a bit of lettuce. And yeah, I'm really aware that it's a super basic meal. This and the pancake recipe are super basic, that most people probably already know how to make. However, the basics I feel are really important. You need to remind yourself of them. Now let's get into our first dinner recipe, straight into them homemade pizzas. This is what we're going to need for our recipe. I will put up on the screen exactly how much and how much it costs. So we're going to need some plain flour, around 80 mils of milk. You can use any milk you want. We use soy milk, a pinch of salt, some oil. Again, you can use any oil you have. This is the oil that we happen to have in. If you wanted to use cheaper oil, you can. You do not have to use olive oil whatsoever. I am pricing this up though from the ingredients that I use. So it will be this olive oil that I will be pricing up from. Then some yeast. You can get packets of yeast. I found it is cheaper to buy one of these and they last a lot longer. Bit of tomato puree. We will be watering this down. Some cheese. Again, you can use any cheese you want. However, the toppings on your pizza is where it will get expensive. This is how much it is just for the dough and the pizza sauce. And your toppings will really determine how expensive this meal will become. So we just find the biggest and cheapest block of cheese that we can find. So we've got this one from Aldi for the entire block. I think it was £4.55. As you can see, some have been used already. We have about 600 grams left and this should be plenty for 4 pizzas. You can add onions, sweet corn, mushrooms, pineapple, sausages, anything you want to add you can, but of course it will increase the price of the overall pizzas. It's also going to be water, some lukewarm water. This is how much it costs per plain cheese pizza with the ingredients that I have in front of you. We're going to start by weighing out 650 grams of plain flour, followed by lots of salt. I forgot to show it on the camera, but also 11 grams of yeast. The amount of yeast you use will depend on how hot it is. On a hotter day, you only need 7 grams. In the winter, we tend to use 11 grams. Then we're going to mix up. You can of course do this by hand, but I have this dough attachment that I can use for my mixer, so I'm going to do that. Once the dry ingredients are mixed together, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil and then mix them. Again, it can be any oil, we just used olive oil. And then once the olive oil is mixed in, we will start to add our lukewarm water and milk. So first I add in 80 mils of soy milk, you can use whatever milk you want, followed by about 350 millilitres of water. You need to really watch your dough. If it's looking too wet, add more flour or try not to add too much water. If it's looking too dry, you might need to add a bit more water. You want a pliable, stretchy dough, but not a sticky dough. Sprinkle some flour onto a work surface and knead for about 10 minutes. Once the dough is fully kneaded, we're going to get a clean bowl and put a bit of oil in the bottom and spread it all the way around so that the dough will not stick to the bowl. Then place the dough into the bowl and cover with a wet tea towel or cling film. We use cling film because we find it dries out less if we use cling film, and leave it to rise. While your dough is rising, you can make your pizza sauce. All I do is use probably for 4 pizzas, 1/3 of a tube of tomato puree and a similar amount of water, and then mix up until it's a pourable, not too runny, quite thick, but pourable liquid. And then I'm going to add a bit of salt to that, and you can add some mixed herbs as well if you want, but not necessary. After about 4 hours of proving, it will be less in the summer, but in the winter it took about 4 hours of rising. I'm ready to push back my dough, so I cut it into 4 pieces, and then I very slightly roll it, literally just into a ball shape, and then place it on my chopping board. Once I've left them on the chopping board, I'm going to cover them with a wet paper towel to prove and rise a bit more, and at the same time I'm going to preheat my oven to as hot as it will go while they're rising, and then going to grate and prep the cheese ready for chopping the pizzas. Please, 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 if you are buying grated cheese, stop right now. Buy block cheese, grate yourself, you will save money. That took me 5 minutes to grate that 650 grams of cheese. And if I was going to get 650 grams of grated cheese, it would be a hell of a lot more than what I spent on this. Once everything's prepped, we're going to start rolling it out. You can use a rolling pin for this. It would probably be easier if you do at first. Eventually you will get to a point where you can use your hands. So flour a work surface and start rolling your pizzas out into a pizza shape. Once you have the shape that you want, then we're going to poke some holes with a fork to make sure we don't get any huge air bubbles. You need to have a very flat baking tray. Make sure you've left that in the oven to preheat with your oven so that when you place your dough onto the tray, it's already hot. So once you've rolled out the shape that you want, place it on your hot preheated tray with no sauce on, just as it is with the holes poked into it, and we're going to pre-cook the dough for a bit. So place that in the oven until it's ever so slightly got a goldenness to it. So you don't want it to be fully cooked, but you don't want it to be raw either. And then we can top our pizzas. Can you see it's got a slight gold to it? It's hard to see on the camera, but it's not fully cooked. And then spread on the sauce on top of the pizza, and then your cheese and any other toppings. If you're putting something other than cheese on your pizza, do a sprinkle of cheese, toppings, then another sprinkle of cheese. You won't need as much cheese as what you think you need. Then we're going to place them back in the oven until the cheese looks melted and golden. I don't put a time on this because everyone's ovens will be different, but I also turn the oven down ever so slightly. So when we first put it on, we put it at the highest temperature, and then while we were pre-baking the dough, I ever so slightly turned it down to probably around 220 degrees Celsius. This is what your pizza should look like when it's all done. I'm going to gently place it on a plate to cool down a bit. You do not want to cut these when the cheese is still very, very hot, because the cheese will go everywhere. Let it harden up ever so slightly before you cut it. Right, there are our 4 pizzas, all finished and cooked up. I'll chop these up now that they've been sitting for a little while. And again, like I said, you can add whatever you want to these pizzas. We just went for cheese. And finally, let's get into our last recipe, our homemade carbonara. This is a super simple, quick recipe. We're gonna call it a carbonara recipe. However, Italians, please don't come for me. It is not. It's carbonara inspired, but a true carbonara does also have bacon. We don't eat bacon, so if you would like to, you can easily add bacon. These are our ingredients. I'll put on the screen, like always, how much they cost and how much we need to use. We've got spaghetti. You can use any pasta you want. So we're gonna use spaghetti. We've got, we'll probably use all of this garlic. We are going to use 1 full egg and then 2 egg yolks. You can just use 1 egg yolk, but adding the 2 egg yolks makes it creamier. But please do not discard the egg whites. You can use them for making meringues, egg white omelettes, royal icing. You can use loads of them, so do not discard your egg whites, use them please. So about 3 eggs overall we'll be using. Then I've measured this out. This is about 150 grams and it looks like it should be enough, and there's a mixture of whatever cheese we had. We've got salt and pepper. If you are not using baking, you are going to want to put in a lot of salt and pepper, okay? I'm also having sweet corn and green beans to go on the side for the kids and us. So these are our ingredients, and now let's go on to the recipe. The first thing you need to do is fill up a pan big enough to cook your pasta in with water and start to boil. And once that is boiling, we're going to add in our pasta so that can cook. While the pasta is cooking, we are going to prepare the ingredients for our carbonara sauce. This is insanely simple. All we need to do is prep the garlic cloves. I have this really cool little roller where you roll it and it gets all of the skin off the garlic. And then once I've prepped the garlic, I'm going to separate my eggs. There's 1 full egg in a measuring jug, and then 2 egg yolks. Then I'm going to mix up the eggs together, and then I'm going to add my grated cheese. So mix the grated cheese in with the egg yolks all together in a measuring jug so that is a well combined. It will be a very, very thick kind of paste. Then we're going to heat some oil in a pan. You can use whatever oil you like. I'm using extra virgin olive oil here, and I'm going to heat up that oil. Once the pasta is almost finished cooking, make sure to keep aside 1 cup of the pasta water for later on. Then we're going to drain our pasta of the water. Then once the oil is hot, add in your garlic. You're going to cook the garlic for a minute. Once the garlic is cooked through, turn off the heat to the pan, add in your pasta, and then we're going to add in the egg and cheese paste that we made. So you want to make sure your pan is turned off before you complete this step, so you do not curdle the eggs and cook the eggs too quickly. So add in your egg and your cheese mixture to the pasta, and then we're going to slowly mix that, loosening it with the pasta water that we kept for later, until you get a cheesy, saucy consistency that you like. My camera has not really picked up very well how saucy this is because it's the same sort of colour as the pasta, but it is extremely cheesy and saucy. It's one of those recipes that you just have to play it by ear. Add as much of the water as you feel it needs at the time. But once that's all mixed together, your dinner is ready to serve. Don't forget to add in lots of salt and pepper as well to taste. And if you wanted to add bacon, you would add it in just before the garlic in this step process. This is mine and the boys' dinners. I've added sweet corn and greens to dinner just to make it more of a rounded dinner, and AJ wanted cheese on top as well. Right guys, that was all 4 of the recipes that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, comment, it helps out the channel. I'm sure you are bored of hearing YouTubers say this. Am I a YouTuber? I don't know if it counts yet. I don't know how many subscribers I need to have to be deemed a YouTuber. That's everything for today guys. I will see you in the next video. Have a good day. Bye friends.